Hey, how's it going, man? It's your boy PM FALONMCKNIGHT, and we'd like to welcome you to the PM Lifestyle Podcast, live on Instagram, YouTube. Comment, like, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, also the notification bell. You'll be notified when we go live online, and you get all your updates, information, and things of that nature, man. So tune in with us. Tonight, we're going to be discussing a few things, topics that's going on since the new administration has taken over. We're here to deliver the news, any questions that you might have. So whether it's the new Jim Crow laws that seems like it's taking effect in 2025, they're trying to bring things back. The difference between Agenda 25 and 47 and Project 2025. So stay tuned, man. We're finna lock in. Got a guest co-host. We're fixing to go ahead and get this thing started and hang out with us. So right now, if you don't mind, turn up your get your TV in focus. We about to get it going. I'm about to bring on a special guest, Fred Mack, and he's very knowledgeable of what he can tell you and things that you might not know. So we're gonna go ahead and bring him in right now. I want to welcome my guest, Fred Mack.
Hey, good evening, P. How's it going there?
What's up, Fred? How you doing?
Man, good, man. I'm healthy, blessed.
That's good. It's good.
And stronger. So yeah, it's all good.
It's good, man. So I know there's been a lot going on in the news, man, since the election. A lot of people are in an uproar. It's a lot of things going on. We have deportations. We have a lot of executive orders and things like that being filed and signed and things of that nature. And a lot of people in the United States are worried right now. So we're here just to talk about some things and just get some clarity on what's going on, what moves you need to make in the future, and just see what's really going on, and on aside from your news stations and things like that. So the first subject is we've been listening to a lot of things that's been going on in the news, such as Project 2025. So tonight we're here to just discuss a little bit on how Agenda 47 and Project 2025 differ. So Fred, with that being said, we know that Trump has been reelected. He's coming to our president, number 47. He's beat Kamala in the race. So he was signed in. So we're just probably a week off of him, the inauguration, and being signed in and things like that. And he's came in and he stirred the pot, man. He got it really, really shaken up, and he got a lot of things going on. Is anything you can elaborate on what's recently happened in those type of that type of situation?
I pretty much I would pretty much start with the voting
Mm-hmm.
process and how the votes were purged. And I heard a guy, the other day he was speaking on voting really matters, and just looking at some of the aspects of how a lot of people are discouraged from voting. And overall, I believe that's the intention of what this administration has done. When they go in there, you have a lot of people being activated. Once you turn 18, when I was coming up, once you turned 18, you actually automatically, were supposed to go
Mm-hmm.
and register to vote. And then shortly after that, and now I'm talking about the 80s, the early 80s at that time. But how they come back now, to purge the votes, to almost make it like impossible for you to vote, telling you that you can, but kind of making it hard for you to vote. So I think it's pretty much they're trying to reverse that and go back to those days. And of course, our parents uh, even had it harder, So I think that's where they're pretty much going with that.
So when you said making it discouraged to vote, are you saying like not promoting it, or just not having so many youth try to step up and do it? Like we said, you turned 18, you were encouraged to vote. Now you have a lot of young adults, even in our age bracket, not taking it as serious as you know You would think.
Right, right. I mean, also there's been, there's been a decline in
Hmm.
civics, engagement, civic engagement, to where at one point in time, everybody was pretty much in the same boat, to where they knew what they were fighting for. They had a common cause to say, okay, well, yeah, even if a guy wasn't informed to know what he was voting for, he was actually told, okay, this is what we must do to to gain these civil rights, and to where equality was provided. But now I think with social media, once that came to play, it kind of helped the agenda of discouragement.
Okay. So with a lot of that, like you said, I remember back in the day, you had to rock the vote. You had different things, commercials. You had BET announcing a lot of the things. A lot of people were encouraging people to vote. Nowadays, in the last couple of elections, from me personally, from Biden and the Trump administrations and votes, I didn't really see a lot of that. We didn't see a lot of campaigns going around telling these young people to get out and vote. It was really minimal to what we saw. And with social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, you're hearing a lot of this propaganda being put out there from Russia and different places that are now interrupting or interfering with the votes and things like that. Do you think that had a major effect on a lot of this too?
Oh yes, I mean that is a key phrase, propaganda. Actually, the social media, to where you pretty much anybody can go on there and get a following, and then to gain the
Hmm.
clickbait from that. But propaganda itself, news is not the way it was, presented, years ago. You actually had journalists reporting the news, and it was like almost a requirement, for you to have the
Hmm.
facts checked before you even go on to the news. Now, now how we've evolved to the point of where you're hearing
Fake
this
news, yes.
fake news. Right, right. So once that's generated, it's almost like, what do you believe? And when you got all these social media platforms where people can present so-called news that's actually fake news, is what it's like a younger person or somebody that's misinformed or uninformed will pick up on just about anything, and if
Hmm.
you say it enough, it's almost like solid, truth. So yeah, that
Yeah,
that
because
is
I hear a lot
major.
of the young people now, they're not watching television. They're not watching news updates. They're not watching CNN and all that stuff.
Right,
They're where you get your news from? Oh, I get it from TikTok. And that social
right,
media.
right,
It's a device in their hand that they're looking at, and they're getting this information firsthand, and they take it as gold. They take it as credible, credible, and you can't tell them nothing else. You know what I mean?
right,
Especially in the day and age of the internet.
right.
It's first thing they see on there is believable. You know what I mean?
That's interesting because with the devices to be able to go on to the social
Hmm.
media platforms, you also you also have other apps in there
Fact
to where
check
you can
stuff.
actually fact check what you're actually
Yeah,
viewing
yeah.
and hearing. So that's interesting.
Now,
Yeah,
you
so
had
it's a little
you
perplexed.
had
So yeah.
Elon Musk is recently around President-elect Trump, right? He purchased
Mhm.
Twitter, which he changed to X, not recently or last year. Wasn't he banned from Twitter or making comments, or he had a banned account from Twitter? Mm.
Yes, Donald Trump. Yes,
And,
yeah. Actually, there was uh, Trump and a lot of other influences they would ban. But when Elon Musk changed it to X, I mean, Twitter was a much more. It was like
mhm.
professional base to where you can go and and get commentaries. CEOs pretty much followed Twitter, and professional people that was on Twitter. Now you go on there, you open it up, and you got, I don't know how these algorithms come to play where you got porn and everything else. I mean, it's kind of hard to know if you even on Twitter or not, which is now
So
X.
why was he banned from
And
Twitter?
so
What
yes,
what did he do? for the people that might know?
Uh I I know it was something. This the information he was putting out, but uh, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was censored to to the degree to where he was saying something against the censoring that they
Oh,
had
okay.
set up on there, but I can't recall exactly what it was, But he kind of broke the rules of the censoring, so
So
they
he
shut him down. Which he was on there. He was on there nightly.
saying
He'd
all
be
kind
on
of
there all
crazy
night.
stuff. Huh?
Yeah, people would wake up, and there he was. Yeah, he was there.
So
So
that
yeah,
might have been his way of using that outlet to put out propaganda on his own, because all these violations that he had,
that was
he was saying some stuff threatening people like that, and I guess Twitter must have had a standard of,
yeah.
you know, the way you're supposed to conduct yourself. He just took advantage of it, basically.
Hmm.
So now we have him
Yeah.
in office. Um, Project 25 and Agenda 47. We have these two now are being mentioned. But when you hear it, you hear more of the Project 2025. They kind of like skip over the Agenda 47, which when you tie in, just even the way you look at it, Agenda 47 is like
Hmm.
Trump's agenda. Then you have Project 2025. So it's like, to me, it's like they're putting these two together to say, okay, we're going to get him in office. Once we get him in office, then we're going to carry on this agenda, the project of 2025, to continue this for the next presidential elect that comes into play. And I looked into it, and it has a lot behind it, man. You're looking at banning same-sex marriages, the LGBTQ community. It's kind of like reversing everything that was put into play, I guess, when Obama was in office. So this is came about, what, 2022, when they started mentioning this.
Actually, yeah. That was pretty much his agenda to where um, actually you going back further, to like the
Mm-hmm.
Jim Crow era to where again, talking about purging the vote, bringing in complications, and see during the Jim Crow era, they had laws in place to where you couldn't marry the interracial. You couldn't have interracial marriages. There was really no civil liberties,
Mm-hmm.
for everybody. Not even most women, could vote or even own properties or buy a house. A single woman and a white woman or a black woman couldn't buy a house, without a husband. So yeah, but then overall, the voting that was out of the question. If you wasn't a white male property owner, whether that be cattle or human.
Wow. So when did this quite take
Yeah.
effect? When you think about the Jim Crow era, just for the listeners, like what year, what time period was this?
Well, that was pretty much right after uh,
Mm-hmm.
abolition of slavery, like the late 1800s, from like I want to say like 1868, uh, from 1868 to around it was
Mm-hmm.
late 1800s, and that's during the Reconstruction period, because during that period, you actually had a lot of blacks in Congress, and you had one president that actually showed. It was a movie. He showed in the White House that kind of triggered, the movement of the KKK, and for those fear tactics, the kind of ran rampant to keep people from the polls. But yeah, it was 1877,
So you said it
1865
was
to
a lot of them in
1877.
Congress. How did black people get in Congress back in those times when it was a lot of racism still going on? Because even when I was younger, I'm born in '77. My great great grandmother, we,
Well, We're talking about
1877. So that's what
1877.
I'm saying. Like I remember racism as a
1877,
kid when I was
1875.
in Bunkie, Louisiana. I remember being on, seeing the other side of the track. So you had the black communities on one side of the track and the white communities on the other side. And when my grandmother would work over there, my mom would walk me across the tracks to go, see her. We couldn't get her. We couldn't go to the front. We had to walk to the back to get her out the back of where she worked at. It was kind of like strange to see a strong black woman. Um, she was strong in her household. She was strong in her neighborhood and her stuff like that in her community. But once she walked across those tracks, I seen a different person. And it didn't seem,
Right.
something seemed off. And when I'm looking at her, as a kid, I'm like, something's not right. And then I'm seeing these, white people, and it's kind of strange to me because I'm not seeing many of them. You know what I mean? And when she gets back to her side, you can hear the mumbling of, oh yes, this is what's happening over there and all that. So this was 77 when I was born. So we're looking at like 80, 81 at the youngest. How did we get black people in Congress way back then during this, when it was slavery? Like, how did that work?
Well, I mean, it was some of the laws that are in place now wasn't in place,
Mm-hmm.
at that particular time. Some of the Constitution when it was formed. I mean, you go and do amendments and add things to the Constitution, so a lot of things wasn't in place, at that particular time. So, um, um, and then you're looking at, the Civil War hadn't
Mm-hmm.
taken place yet either. So, which was to come in that made a lot of changes to how the Constitution was set up. Or that was actually amended. I'm sorry, but amended. So yeah, that wasn't the same. So when you're looking at Abraham Lincoln, for example, he was a Republican, and today you'll hear like some conservatives come through with trickery to say, okay, well, uh, you should be a Republican because the Republicans freed the slaves or whatever. That was a totally different Republican Party at that particular time. It wasn't about conservatism. At that time, you had Democrats. They were actually
Mm-hmm.
Dixiecrats. So moving forward with up until after abolition of slavery, that was a totally different ball game then.
So, like, we were traditionally Republicans before Democrats back in the day, right? I ain't gonna say we because I was too young, I wasn't here at that time, but wasn't that how it went, kind of, sort of? Like, it was more Republicans? Or
Most African
how did that
Americans, right,
change? Like,
right.
what happened to
Uh,
where it swapped?
uh, Pretty much when uh, when blacks were able to take part in the
Mm-hmm.
process, they were kind of like siding with whoever would say, okay, we want to uh, make it applicable to a certain group of people. And so, of course, if somebody's saying, okay, we're going to free you, yeah, you're going to side with that guy. And then if another guy comes over here, on the other side, say, well, we're going
Mm-hmm.
to give you these rights, you're going to side with them. So pretty much, I mean, Republican, most black people were Republican up until um, the late 50s, early 60s, going to early 60s with LBJ and Martin Luther King Martin Luther King Jr. spent his time in jail, short stint in jail. His daddy, Martin Luther King's daddy, was with John F. Kennedy. When John F. Kennedy and LBJ started talking about getting him out of jail, that's when he started saying, okay, well, we need to vote Democratic because they're talking about civil rights and voting rights. So that was kind of like the big push, and the big switch over to the Democratic Party. But the Democratic Party at that particular time, like I say, those
Mm-hmm.
were Dixiecrats. And so the Republican Party opened up and say, well, they don't want y'all over there because they're accepting all these other people over there. So y'all come on over here. with us. And so that's when there was a big transition there for a lot of white people that went over to the Republican Party.
And it's a lot of people that are, they're shocked when they hear that. They didn't even know it, and it's very shocking. So now into this day and era, Jim Crow trickery revealed that 3.5 million votes were denied in this past election. So they try to say that, they hit the switch on us again, Fred. They try to get us again.
Yeah.
So they say voter suppression won the election. So I was looking at an article that was sent to me today. The guy is Greg Palast. He's an investigative journalist. He investigates stuff as if like he's the cop, and he's pretty good at it. He said that 3,065,000 votes were held back. Right. That was in 4 states.
Right.
And among those 4 states is if she would have won, she would have gotten a lot of those votes or a percentage of them, and she would have won 287 electoral votes, right? And that's a huge number. And a lot of these were taken from black polling sites, black college students, and things like that. So it's not necessarily that she would have gained every one of those votes, but they weren't counted, and that would have made a difference in the election.
Yeah.
So we talk about the electoral votes and things like that, and electoral college. That's big. Thousands of these were purged. These votes were purged, and 98K was said to have been moved. Reported that Georgians had moved from their location, and this guy had, I think he paid money, or allegedly he said that they called 800 of those people, and 800 of those people said, no, we didn't move out of Georgia. We stayed here. So how do you think that can come about in today's election, especially by them saying that, the election was rigged back when he was taken out of office? Did he kind of figure out something that, to hit the switch and get back in?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, when you look at purging, the language has changed a little bit. They say it's purging the vote. Back in the 60s, it was called a poll tax. Where a lot of white people, they can go in there, as long as they were registered, they could vote. They made it hard for black people to even register, and then the less known to vote. There was a lot of things in place to where they might ask you a question. Okay, how many bubbles would this jar of soap produce? Which is things like that. They'd ask you questions that was almost unconscionable. So that would prevent you from being able to vote. And then, of course, certain things, your background, you had to have a job, because of before that, you had the black code, things to where you couldn't be caught up in anything. But moving forward with today's time, as far as purging, they can go in there and they can take your name. And if there was another person that had a name similar in the database that had died, they would take you off the roll of the voting roll just because of the similar names. Or you might have a name similar to somebody that was a felon, in certain states. And so that would take you off the roll. They would purge you. Or if you hadn't voted in a few elections, past few elections, or made it like you say, if you had moved to a different location, they would make it like you had moved or whatnot. So they would take you off. It was kind of like going in there cleaning out the database.
Yeah. And that's wild, because you look at it, tens of thousands were purged allegedly in this election, and that's 1 in 7 was thrown away. So
it's viable. Those are viable
so
votes.
You're looking at provisional ballots were thrown out. We don't know which way it was gonna go, but it was done in a certain section of town. So you targeted certain areas, knowing that we might say, okay, if these votes could be count.
Oh, well, they pretty much knew the direction that they were going, because if you look at it, you look into it, it was pretty much Democratic, registered Democrats that they purged. Because on the flip side of that, you looked at a lot of locations. Trying to think about this, where a lot of it to where they were saying there was a lot of voter fraud and voter fraud. So you had the conservatives, they going in there suing these election polls, which they have control over the machines, dating back to the Bush family. They pretty much owned a lot of those machines that we use to vote. But Donald Trump was actually out in California last week, maybe this week, and they were looking into some voter fraud that took place out in California. And so he's telling the governor, Gavin Newsom, out there that, yeah, we'll go ahead and help you with this disasters and the fires, but we want to do like a package deal, and we want to include some voter regulations, like for voter IDs, like they did here in Texas. It required, like voter IDs and have all this documentation to go in there and vote. When it used to just be, it was, I wouldn't say simple, but less complicated, to vote.
Now, you said that, this dated back to the Bush era. In this recent election, I heard that it was like two different voting companies that handles the votes. Why is it two different companies? Couldn't that cause a problem of really getting an accurate account of what's supposed to be taken in?
Right. Well, I mean, you look at that right there is a little perplexed also, because you look at in previous elections, going back, there was like you go in there and the votes were counted. It was manual. And then once it became digital to where you're using a machine, that pretty much, opens up to fraud, more fraud, on the digital side of it.
More than the manual votes? It seems like somebody can be like, yeah, one for me, two for you, one for me, two for you, with the hand count.
I mean, see, when on the manual side of it, you can count, but you got people on both sides.
Oh, so you have representatives on both sides.
Right, on both sides, to where they can look and see.
Okay.
Yes. So they wouldn't let just one party count the votes or whatnot. So you have these election officials, they're able to oversee that. But now on the digital side of it, it's kind of complicated, if you're not a software engineer or whatever, and then to me, it seems like that would have been like a conflict of interest for a former president and a current president, even the nepotism of a family, to be able to own machines that people are using to vote, and then you kind of like let that coincide with, let's say Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, that own media companies and are able to control some of the internet, so they can switch up how a lot of this stuff works, shutting things down. I mean, it's like we're on right now live. There can be a glitch, and then once it pops back up, something's out of place. You know what I mean? Or you've missed a lot of content. Right? It's not the same. So yeah, and so those were some of the things that where you're looking at the trickery, and the Jim Crow trickery. That's pretty much what it's going.
So Fred, like this, check this out. If we know that they got the, they tricking us, or they doing the whoop-de-whoop on us, right? Why isn't it that they can push the voting process back, the elections back, right? We have a start time when they start the elections. We have an end time when they end them. Then we have the inauguration. They looks like they pushed the inauguration back a little bit, right? So why isn't it that for us, so we can get a more accurate account of what's cracking? Like, why we can't push it back, start the elections earlier than November, right? Is it November? Why we can't bring it more forward? Have the elections, make sure that we will have a room for a recount. We have room to make sure everything's correct. Put one system in place, if possible, and make the process just a little bit more longer. That way, we can get more accuracy. Is that possible? You think so?
It is possible, but it's complicated because of when you look at the time frame of when you have the elections, going back to the beginning of these elections. November is the time of where the farmers see this is all about. This is about the culture at that time. It was cold. They went out there farming at that particular time, so everybody's off pretty
Oh.
much. And yeah, and which it could be moved. And a lot of things could change. A lot of things could be changed now. And like I say, when you go and look at the Constitution, you look at the 15th Amendment, the 16th Amendment, the 17th. It's just different amendments. Amendments means change. So you can make changes, but it takes a work of Congress to even activate it and, to change a lot of that. But you got some true old people that's in there that's trying to keep this tradition moving forward, and that's what I would say the problem is.
It's a crazy process, man. I know year after year, we do this, and I would have thought that we could have done it. So, now looking forward, we're not even 2 weeks in. I think this is probably our second week into the process of this, and we've seen a lot of what's going on, man. We have deportation, mass deportation. We have a lot of executive orders being signed. We have a lot of crazy stuff that's going on right now, and it's a lot of people are in an unrest. I recently had a friend of mine. For some reason, he thought Trump was going to do it for him, and I heard a lot of us, and when I say us, black people, supporting and backing, the new president. And to me, it was only like a monetary thing. Oh, well, he's gonna get us rich. He's gonna do this, and I'm like, well, if you haven't been rich all your life, man, I don't think that a president-elect is gonna get you rich, especially when he didn't already had a term. So after he was brought in, and they're now seeing the the stuff that he's doing, they were shocked. And it's crazy. Like, how do you think going forward with Donald Trump? Will his agenda still be backed by J.D. Vance in the next term in the Republic? Are they working on that stuff now to make sure in the next 4 years that he's in the business, or will he will this make this an easy route in for J.D. Vance to be president next?
It's kind of hard to say. That's to be determined because I kind of feel like this administration will self-destruct, and looking at it as an empire, if you look at all the other previous empires, they failed. You can only go so long. He will only go so far. So I think now the plan and the agenda, it's on track. Even for right now, you go in there to get a younger guy as a vice president. Something happens to the older guy, the president. This guy steps in, and he was a part of the agenda in the beginning. He's one of the architects of this project 2025. So quite naturally,
J.D. Vance was?
J.D. Vance, right? Yeah. So.
Well, I thought he was against Trump in the beginning, though. Wasn't he against Trump?
Yeah, he was against Trump, but the agenda was in place. The Project 2025 was an agenda. And like you were saying in the beginning, Trump had his own agenda, which is the 47, the Agenda 47. See, that was his thing. So Trump is pretty much, he's like a lone wolf. He's pretty much used to doing what he does. He was born with that, used to doing things his way. And so he kind of pretty much took over that conservative party. And so you have a lot of conservatives that saying that they don't actually support him. You had like some devout Republicans that don't support Donald Trump. Some of them that don't support him, he's got in his cabinet. Like you take Marco Rubio, he was running against Donald Trump, in the primary, in one primary, but now he's on the cabinet.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing because you like, yeah, I don't support him, but we're gonna still back the Republican Party. So
Right.
I had a client of mine. He came in and said that one of his clients was moving out of the country,
Hmm.
and he was selling some stuff. He needed to get rid of it. He had a couple of houses here and whatever, whatever. So when I go meet with the guy, the fella, he was like, "Well, yeah, I'm leaving because of Trump,
Hmm.
but I still had to vote for him." So it was
You
kind
say
of
you had
crazy.
to vote for him?
He had to vote for him, and I was
Mm.
kind of conflicted. Like, were you voting for him because there was another black woman in place that was supposed to come and be vice president,
Right,
or
right,
you voting for him for your party? And
right.
he was a white fella, so it was kind of like, what are you really meaning by that? And I'm just meeting him, so I didn't want to have this conversation with him in his house, and next thing you know, he got to get boo-bopped in his living room because I asked him the wrong question.
Right,
But it was
right.
crazy. They still vote for their party, man, and it's wow, no matter what it is, they're
Keep it
still gonna stand
professional in
behind.
business. Right, right.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen him disrespect people's wives. He's calling people all kind of crazy names, and yet they still back this dude, man, and that's
Did you
crazy.
happen to did you happen to see any of the inauguration or like some
I
playback on
didn't
that
watch it.
or
No, I
yeah,
didn't watch. To be honest with
yeah.
you, I didn't watch it because I think I was at the shop that day, so I wasn't really tuned in to what was going on. I think it was interfering with my time or what I was doing. But
Well, I tell you,
um,
I hadn't planned on watching it,
mhm.
and I didn't want to be a part of the ratings, of whoever it was shown on all
Yeah,
channel, all
you
networks.
were
So
trying
I
to
didn't
show your support regardless, huh?
right, I didn't want to throw any support in there at all. But
Yeah.
then something in me was like, I just want to see this,
Hmm.
watch some of it. So I kind of like watched, snippets of it. And even now what really got me was the President Jimmy Carter's uh, funeral, when you
Hmm.
had multiple presidents, and dignitaries there, and so oh, excuse me for a minute. But yeah, when you saw where Trump and his wife Ivanka sitting there on the end, and so you had Bush, President Bush, his wife had to pass through there. You
Rocking and
had
shit.
well, Michelle wasn't there.
Oh,
she
that's the one
she
she
had,
didn't go to.
she didn't go. She didn't go.
Yeah.
Now she
I
likes
hope they.
Jimmy Carter. She liked Jimmy Carter, the
Mhm.
funeral, but supposedly, I guess now my look at take on it is that she didn't want to even be confronted, in the presence of Donald Trump, because she knew he was going to be there.
Yeah.
Now they said that she was on vacation in Hawaii. Now, me looking
Okay.
at that, a president and somebody of that status can get from Hawaii uh, to the rotunda in D.C.
Yeah.
within a few hours and wouldn't have to wait in line at the airport. You know what I'm saying? So
Especially on the
she wanted
jet.
to
You
be
guys got
there.
on jet.
She could be
Yeah.
there. But anyway, you had Bill Clinton, President Clinton, and Hillary Clinton. They walked
Hmm.
right by Donald Trump. Didn't shake his hand. Didn't even look at him. They sat down. You had Kamala Harris
And her
uh,
husband sitting in
and her
front, right?
husband Doug Emhoff. They walked right by him. Didn't say a word. Uh, and a number of other people, like senators, they didn't shake his hand. Barack
No.
Obama, there was one seat sitting next to Donald Trump, and in between, it was I forgot who it was on the other side of that one seat that was
Yeah.
available. Barack Obama walked in there, shook his hand, sit down beside him, and they were having like pleasant conversations of whatever they were talking about.
Hmm.
So um, that was interesting to see, and because, and then when you looked at his inauguration, he actually, man, I mean, he actually, man, it was shocking to see how he denigrated the administration, the outgoing administration. He said it was the worst and made America look bad, and so you had Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and everybody sitting there looking at him like they were in shock that he was saying this stuff, because that's never been done in
So
an
he
inauguration before.
he he was saying it right there with them present.
Yes,
See,
yes,
that's why
live.
I'm See, that's why Michelle couldn't be there. She's from Chicago.
Right.
Michelle
Probably
probably
would got
would
to
have
call a case, maybe.
threw a shoe at him like they did Bush over there in China. Like, I ain't
Right.
playing
Oh
with this,
yeah,
bro.
yeah.
See, I don't think
See,
she could be fake like that, man.
right, and see that you say that. Uh, I forgot that country that Bush was in when he threw that shoe, but that is the ultimate disrespect for them to throw
Throwing
a
a shoe
shoe.
at
That's why
somebody.
they took his shoe off, and then he had another one that to where Bush looked like was actually uh, auditioning for the next Matrix because he leaned back, to avoid that second shoe coming at him. So, yeah, but
Hey,
that was
Bush
the
was
ultimate disrespect.
he was pretty fast though. I give it to him
Yes,
for old
yes,
dude. He
yes.
died for that shoe, man. I
I've
give
actually
it to him.
talked to a couple of people that two different guys, individuals that knew personally knew the Bush family
Really?
out of West Texas, and it was pretty interesting, for on separate occasions and two different individuals saying pretty much the same thing. The one said he went to school with Bush, an older gentleman, and he said they were actually some decent people. And
I see
actually,
Michelle.
matter of fact,
Michelle was pretty cool with him too, right?
yes,
Michelle Obama.
yes,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. Well, most older white men don't have a problem with black women. They don't have a problem with black women. They have a
Mm-hmm.
problem with men that
Man,
don't look like them.
wow, that's
If they feel
crazy.
like they're a threat or whatever. But yeah, he
Mm-hmm.
he didn't have. I mean, you remember Condoleezza Rice was in there in his cabinet, so he didn't have a problem with us. They were saying that they actually pretty much had an affair. But I don't know. I mean, allegedly, but
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it, man. The way he
yeah,
be
yeah,
looking, it looked like he wanted to taste a little chocolate sometime. I ain't gonna lie to you.
yeah, yeah,
Hey Fred, I caught him looking at Michelle like this a couple times.
yeah,
I'm like, man,
yeah.
Barack gonna punch you in the eye. You better leave Michelle
Well, I
alone.
mean, it was one of those at the inauguration. I'm trying to remember who it was that Trump gave a hug to, and the cameraman, his hand slid from her shoulder blade all the way down to a gluteus max. So I was like, wow. But
I wouldn't put it past Trump. He like to pay to
yeah,
play, so
yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely
I
wouldn't
mean,
put it past
yeah,
him.
yeah. So that, but going back to the Purge election, I mean the votes. When you got gerrymandering, that's happening all over the U.S. Gerrymandering to where they kind of like redistrict, and it
Hmm.
kind of changes the setup to where if you're voting in a certain area, those votes are kind of like mixed in with other uh, voters. So yeah, it don't surprise me, man, to see this trickery of Jim Crow coming back. It really never left, actually, because of the people that's still perpetuating Jim Crow are still around.
Hmm.
I mean, you look at the average age of the politicians, man. I mean, some of these guys up in their 80s, man, and late 70s and 80s, and been around, for 40 years, man, 50
Yeah,
years. They
and like they
walk in
said,
there
man,
in their 30s. Yeah,
you can look at somebody's great great grandmother, and she probably witnessed slavery or owned some slaves around this joint because it's
exactly.
not too far away. And a lot of these young kids, man, they don't even realize that TV used to go off at night. So you
Right.
can imagine that they don't know. They're not understanding how close that was. It's not too far away. Like I said, I saw it walking with my grandmother over the
Mhm.
tracks, and seen it
Well,
and
you
in
know, you look
Louisiana.
when it's interesting that you say that because when you look at your grandmother and my parents, they're like in their
Hmm.
mid 80s now, and my dad is up there at almost hitting on 90 years old.
Hmm.
And they've seen, like you say, they've seen some things and heard some things. When you talk to a person to where they had to look at a water fountain and say black only and whites only, or restroom to where you can go in a restroom. Now
Yeah,
I know for a long time, and I seen it with my own eyes, black only and white only water fountain downtown Dallas and
I heard about
City
that.
Hall. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I heard
went down
about
there
that,
to
man.
look at it, and I think I took pictures of it.
They removed it not too long, less than 10 years ago, right? Wasn't
What's
it
that?
in six? They just removed it less than 10 years ago, right?
Right. It may, yeah, yeah. Because I think they were kind
Wow.
of like reconstruct. They was doing some remodeling, and construction there. And yeah, I seen it with my own eyes. Man, I walked down in that basement and saw the sign. I'm like, man,
Yeah,
that was it.
crazy.
Kind of blew me away, man.
You know what kind of took me away was Mr. Sinclair. You remember Mr. Sinclair
Yes,
from
yes,
Wisconsin?
yes. Oh,
When he
yes.
told me that, he went to go try to purchase something one time. He didn't have a birth certificate, so I guess he
Hmm.
was delivered by a midwife.
Hmm.
But you remember the story of him telling you that his dad would have to didn't want to get caught outside before the sun dropped,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
whatever they had to do, they had to like get there, make sure that they got there in enough time to where it was still
Sundown
daylight.
towns. Right,
Sundown, man, that was
right,
crazy.
right.
And
Hmm.
just to see him, talking about that as an older gentleman, and that he's still alive to tell that story, man, it shows and it proved to me that it wasn't that far away. On top of what I
Right,
seen, now
right.
I'm at this certain age and he's way older than me. So
Hmm.
can you imagine? He's telling this story as him being a teenager or a little kid.
Right,
And that
right.
has to be a devastating time period, man, for a
Mhm.
lot of us. You know what I'm saying? And for these kids now, it's kind of crazy to see that. How is it going to change? How does racism still exist when we have kids mingling with other kids and they don't really see it? And you would think that it would, after a certain amount of time, that it would just disappear, or not disappear, but lessen. So it has to be taught, right? It doesn't have to be like kept up to be a subject of hate. You know what I'm saying? To still be saying like, oh yeah, this is what happened. But they try to erase it out of the history books, but
Hmm.
it still lives in the history of the homes of these parents. And
Hmm.
you would think that at some point you'd be like, okay, it's gotta die now at some point, and it's not.
Yeah. When you look at just all of the symbols of racism and hatred, that's what keeps it alive. I mean, like when you, like, let's say, I'm because I don't personally know Donald Trump, you know, and I'm not sure if you do or not.
Oh, the most
I don't,
definitely. I
I
haven't
don't know.
even been to his casino. Well, I passed by him. I've never even been in his casino in
Right,
Las Vegas,
right,
and I've been there a million times.
right. Yeah, and I actually, matter of fact, I was in Chicago um, last year,
Mm-hmm.
downtown Chicago, and kind of went down to the Water Walk, and he's got a beautiful hotel there. I've seen a couple of his other uh, thing stances in other places. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of amazing, because those buildings, that architecture stands out. You got some real nice architecture in Chicago, but his stands out as being modern, and it's just something that draws you to it. To say, okay, well, I've seen it or whatnot. But that's what I mean. I get, like I'm getting that, like with a symbol, with symbols.
Mm-hmm.
He's a part of that old era, that era of symbolism, and uh, and you may recall, when President Obama was in office, and they started going through erecting these the statues that were erected. They was
Yeah,
pulling a lot of them down, tearing them down,
yeah,
and changing the names on these buildings because of the symbolism. Because when you
correct.
got the symbolism in place, that's what keeps that
Alive.
that racism alive. Right.
Mm-hmm. And they was going crazy when we was erasing that stuff, man, taking those buildings down. Oh, my grandfather has history. Yeah, it
Hmm.
is racist. It's
Hmm.
bad history. It's dark
Right.
history.
Right.
So and it's kind of crazy that it stayed up this long. You know.
Well, see, that's the important thing about it. Like let's take the Daughters of Confederacy. These, like what, granddaughters and some daughters of, well, granddaughters of these uh, Confederate soldiers and generals. So
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to keep that history alive, you know, to 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 prevent them from pulling all these statues down or taking the names off of these buildings, that were erected. Now, when you look at civil rights, you look at the Civil Rights Museum, African American Museum,
Mm-hmm.
or it's really a weird feeling, man, to get close to. Like, I went over to the Edmund Pettus Bridge over in Alabama, where they did the Bloody Sunday, where they marched across Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy, Andrew Young, and John Lewis. They all marched across that bridge, to in a form of protest to get civil rights. And just to go over there now to see it, because they're actually like sites, um, that's a symbol to help us remember what was really going on. But if you're taking those things like that out of the history books, or not even talking about these things, it's kind of hard for a young person to say, okay, what did that happen?
Yeah.
You telling a young person about uh, something that happened to you 5 or 6 years ago, some racism, they thinking it might have took place, 200 years ago. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Because that's just how, like you were saying, that there's a reason for them taking those history books away and wiping things out. So, but yeah, and I also went over to the Lorraine Hotel where Martin Luther King got shot.
Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just a
And so,
feeling.
is that an active hotel or is it just a monument?
It's pretty much a museum now. It's not.
Museum? Okay.
Now, I don't think anybody is staying there, but they got the car outside, that was sitting
Oh,
there.
for real?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the car's outside, and the whole where he got shot at, they got the markings on the ground, and then also where the lobby is kind of like it's a museum. You can actually go in and look in the room and everything.
Wow. That's I didn't know about that, man.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the African American Museum itself, a lot of things that took place in history, man. A lot of those the documents and a lot of the artifacts
Hmm.
are actually in the museum, to where it goes back further than that. I mean, you see things where that was on slave ships that's in the museum. So I mean, that type of
Wow.
stuff is touching, man, and really it grabs hold of you to say, okay. See, it's almost like you telling somebody that's that lived through that, okay, that's over with. Don't worry about it, and don't let that
Leave it
keep.
alone.
Yeah, but you look at the other side of that. These guys want to keep it alive. You know what I'm saying? They're not telling their kids, hey, that happened in the past, and don't even think about it. They telling their kids, hey, we got to stay in control. We got to keep this power uh, uh, set up moving. And so I think that right there is pretty much a big issue, because when Martin Luther King was saying, okay, I believe we have actually been given a check from the federal government that they can't cash. You see what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And after his I Have a Dream speech, there's a lot more to it. I Have a Dream. There was a lot of things in that speech, that's almost at the bottom
Hmm.
of the speech.
That's towards the end.
Yeah. And so a
Yeah.
lot of things that he because right before he had went over to Memphis and did well, he had been over to, he was talking about going to the Poor People's Campaign, having the Poor People's Campaign over in Memphis and other cities, and they really didn't want him here in Dallas. Black and white folks, they didn't want him here in Dallas. And a lot of churches and ministers and pastors, they didn't want him coming around, because they were saying he was a troublemaker, and they didn't want him to stir up them good old white folks, to make things worse on them. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a crazy thing, man, when you think about it. And when I really actually think about it, me being 60 years old now, um, I think about civil rights was a act was signed in uh 64,
Hmm.
and the Voting Rights Act was signed in 1965. That was the year I was born.
That's crazy. And I'm born in
1965.
'77, so that's not even far apart.
That's when I was going. That's where I'm going.
Mhm. That's
So
crazy.
when you get ready to go to pre-K and kindergarten, because see, those were policies put in place.
Hmm.
Pre-K, you know, and kindergarten. They try to. This administration right now, They're trying to take that out, take that away. Pre-K.
Pre-K.
Yeah. Free lunch. They're trying to take all that out of the schools.
All those programs, right?
Yes. I mean, they actually, his first administration, he actually had, what was her name? Betsy Voss, I think it was. She was over, the education secretary.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually trying to dismantle public schools, get rid of public schools altogether.
And they trying to dismantle and take away the food, but then Michelle came in. She was trying to provide healthy
Right.
lunch for the
Healthy
kids.
stuff, healthy foods
Healthy
in
stuff,
there.
yeah. Taking
Taking
out the
all the soda
sodas,
machines. Yeah.
tackling
Yeah.
obesity and things
Mhm.
like that. Would have helped the
Yeah.
kids, with longevity, even better better grades in school because they're not eating junk. You know what I mean?
Right.
And some of these kids
Right.
wasn't some households. Your these children meals only come from school.
Right.
They
Only
wasn't
chance
coming
to get
home
to
eating
eat.
healthy
Yeah.
food. A good chance to eat breakfast and
Yeah.
lunch, man. So, um, one more thing, Fred, before we leave, or two. You had what do you think the point was releasing the JFK files and the Martin Luther King files? Like, what was that?
Um, I pretty much think that, one part of, I mean, my opinion is it's two part. One part
Mm-hmm.
of it is that Donald Trump has always, he moves forward, and he's been, he's said that this is a corrupt system. You're a part of it though. You're the head of the corrupt system. And once you walked away, or they push you out, and you didn't get elected, and then why'd you come back? He would say that he wants to make America great again, or make it better,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I believe if it wasn't for those convictions and those felonies he received, he wouldn't have been too interested in, becoming president, because if he wouldn't have got voted back in, we would see him
Facing
on his way to
jail
prison.
time.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, that's a part of it. Now, the other part of it, now going back to the files, JFK and Dr. Martin Luther King files, he's trying to show how corrupt the system is, to where he can continue to perpetuate fake news. This
Mm-hmm.
system, you can't trust them, but you can trust me.
Ah,
That's
it
another
comes
part of
back
it.
to the fake news thing.
But the main part of it is to destroy their legacies.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're talking about, because he was followed, with the COINTELPRO, with J. Edgar Hoover. Uh, so they had a lot of different things on them. See, it's not about, they want to show you who killed him and how it went down, and who was a patsy or not. They
They
will
want to
also want to,
correct.
they want you to see the things he did that wasn't exposed. Like,
Correct.
they were saying that he was caught with a prostitute out in California. And of course, they tried to keep it out of the open. He was actually a chain smoker,
Mm-hmm.
and a preacher. But that's just what it was. I mean, that doesn't take away from who he was, smoking
Mm-hmm.
cigarettes or whatever.
I
But
mean,
as a
everybody
womanizer,
smokes some.
yeah. And so they look at things like being a womanizer, or to see if there's some type of bribery or corruption, and
Mm-hmm.
that's to destroy his legacy. And if you destroy somebody's legacy like that, that tears down, man. What a lot of young people thrive to be. To say, well, man, I can't trust nobody. I can't trust Martin
Yeah.
Luther King. I can't trust nobody. Can't trust John F. Kennedy. And it seemed like he was okay and for the people. You can't trust nobody. So I pretty much think that's a big part of it.
Okay. Well, Fred, we come to that point, man. We have to shut down the show. I definitely want to thank you for coming out, man, spending some time. I know time is very valuable. We can't get a lot of time back. So, it was a very valuable moment, educational moment, too. And I want to thank you for being a guest on here on the PM podcast, man. Hope to see you in the future, bro. If I can. Is there anything else you might want to say when you tell the people or motivate somebody to do something, or, anything before you go?
Man, I would say overall it's an honor, to be a part of the show again. But stay healthy and blessed, because because we are blessed, to be alive no matter what. So yeah, I think I will leave you with that. Just work on health, staying healthy and blessed, and seek God. Because I think overall, um, Trump is here for a purpose also. It's all
Everything
about
happens for a reason, huh?
yeah, it's all about design. So yes, and this could be it. To wake us up. Stay woke. That's what they call it. Stay woke. So
Stay woke and vote if you
that's it.
can.
Yeah, yeah. Get more informed. That is the key motive right there. Just be informed. And learn as much as you can to see that way you can kind of understand the process a little better.
All right, man. Well, I thank you for coming, man. I'd love to have you on in the future, man. You stay blessed, man. Stay prayed up, and you stay safe out there, man.
Yes, sir.
Until we
Likewise.
meet again, man.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
go ahead and thank you for visiting the PM podcast, man, with your boy FALONMCKNIGHT, man. Tune into my YouTube, comment, like, subscribe. Go ahead and join. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button, that notification bell. Also follow me on Instagram, FALONMCKNIGHT on Instagram, FALONMCKNIGHT on X, FALONMCKNIGHT on whatever you do, FALONMCKNIGHT.com. All that, we got that, man. From what I'm gonna say, stay prayed up. Remember, show love and don't look for love back, because if you do that, it's gonna automatically come. You know what I mean? Peace.